Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Here we are. We are back in Better Than Ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And so, at this incredibly busy time in the American sports cycle, an enormous story falls unexpectedly from the sky, and I can't decide how much we care. Last night, an improbable series of events took place that resulted in the American soccer team failing to qualify for the World Cup for the first time since 1986. And smack dab in the middle of the baseball playoffs and the football season and the hoops and the hockey, I'm honestly curious just how much the average American sports fan cares. And the good news is I happen to have the average American sports fan sitting right next to me. The one, the only Booger McFarland is here this morning. Good morning, big fella. And let me start by asking you the question I will ask everyone. With everything else that's happening right now, we all understand that a lot of things are going on both on and off the fields of play in American sports and within the conversation that we have here daily. Just how much is this on your radar? The U.S. will not be in the World Cup next year.
Good morning, first of all, Greeny. It was on my radar last night, and I think anytime the World Cup comes around, anytime we're playing country versus team, country versus individual sports, I think the United States galvanizes. And I think for me, the U.S. men's national team is something that I always look forward to, especially in the World Cup. The last time they were there with the vuvuzelas and all that good stuff going on, like it was a spectacle that around the country we all galvanized around. And I think this time we were looking forward to it. And the fact that the U.S. men's national team won't be there, I think really we will care about it today. Twitter was a buzz last night. Taylor Twelman was really just off the chain last night with his comments. And I think everybody was going to care last night. But I think once today comes, it'll be an afterthought. I think with everything going on today, once 24 hours go by and 48 hours, I think the soccer team not making the World Cup will be an afterthought.
Yeah, I think what will happen then is when the World Cup starts, people will look around and say, oh, wait a minute, we're not in this.
Right.
And then it'll become sort of a big deal then, and then the World Cup will become much less of a big deal in this country than it otherwise would have been. I'm thinking back to 4 years ago and all that, and Mike and I pounding on the table and say, I believe that we can win, and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, so this is what it is indisputably is a devastating blow to soccer in this country. I mean, a gut punch to the growth of the sport in this country, because the growth has been astronomical. And there are a lot of people who feel that soccer is a sport in a big way on the come in this country. And I am one of those who believes that, even though I don't personally follow it closely or barely at all. But because I have kids who are teenagers, and I don't know, your kids are a little younger than mine, but I see that the teenagers, a lot of teenagers are into it. Now, they're not into American soccer particularly. They're not following MLS, but they are following Premier League stuff. They know all these plays, much, much, much more about it than I know. And so maybe they'll still watch the World Cup because they'll still get to see Messi and Ronaldo and all of the guys who are playing over there. But by and large, to your point, there are so many people that tune in just because it's a major international spectacle, and you put your patriotism cap on and you root for Team USA. Team USA not being there, this is a devastating blow to the growth of soccer.
You know, Greeny, and we could use this right now. I mean, 2018, the World Cup, I don't see times changing very much in our country by then. I think the World Cup, the U.S. team being there, was something that the United States could have used. And you're right. From a casual sports fan, I think the casual guy is going to tune in and like, hey, where's the U.S.? We're not there, because they will have forgotten what happened this year, and they'll realize that we're not there, and they'll turn off and they'll move on. So I think it's a huge deal. I think everybody realizes that this team probably should have been there. They had every opportunity to make the World Cup. And yes, I know there were some circumstances that maybe were out of their control last night with the water on the field. But understand this. When you're the better team, the other team is playing on the same field that you are. And regardless of how much moisture is on the field, regardless of the water content, regardless of the crowd, if you're the better team, you're supposed to win. And I think if you're a soccer purist, if there is such a thing out there, you're saying this morning that the United States has invested so much money into U.S. soccer, because we realize that football around the world is the number one sport around the world. But here in the United States, it's our version of football. And if we want to ever catch up to what's going on worldwide, we have to invest so much money. And we have. And the fact that we failed to qualify for the biggest world event, I'm sure is going to be very disappointing to a lot of people in U.S. soccer.
Listen, the population of Trinidad and Tobago was 1.4 million people. I think there were that many people in the apartment complex I grew up in, and that's who we lost to last night. Again, a bunch of things had to happen last night, but the part of it that we controlled, the American team controlled easily, was just don't lose to Trinidad and Tobago, and they did. And then they needed help in other places that didn't come, and all that is what it is. One way or another, the bottom line of it is I'm just curious to know how much people will care about this. So I put a poll question up this morning because I really am interested to hear what people's reaction to it will be. And it's a pretty simple one, and the question is as follows. What is your reaction to USA Soccer failing to qualify for the World Cup? And I gave you three choices. Highly upset, mildly upset, don't care that much. So you can go, if you're on Twitter, on ESPN Greeny, and let me know what you think. I'm curious to see what people say.
Did you do the poll correctly? Because I know you have trouble with poll questions.
I struggle with that, but exactly. I'm getting better. No, it will expire 20 minutes before the show ends. I timed it out. Okay. So we'll have like the last segment of our show today. We will have final results, and we can discuss those.
So you've gotten better.
Listen, I am not
pretty easy to do. I'm
a quick study, Bugger.
It's only taken a couple years, but okay.
I mean, it only took me 6 years to figure out how to do a Twitter poll. If I could get 280 characters, my poll would be spectacular. All right, we're Mike and Mike. Let's go off the top here. Here's where it starts. For the first time since 1986, the U.S. men's soccer team has failed to qualify for the World Cup. Going into yesterday, here's basically what had to happen, Booger. The U.S. had to lose to Trinidad and Tobago. Panama had to win. Honduras had to win. The ESPN Soccer Power Index projected a 3% chance that all that would happen. And guess what? The other 97% went down the drain, and again, Team USA not going to the World Cup this year.
No doubt, and the U.S. not only do they have to blame themselves, they actually scored a goal for the other team. Omar Gonzalez, an own goal, and it was a 43-yard shot by Alvin Jones also. Green, this is the first time the U.S. missed the World Cup since 1986. I was 9 years old then.
That I was in college. I mean, why are you trying to rub that in now that you're so much younger than me? I don't understand the reason.
That had less to do about you. That was more about me and my youth.
I'm going to put a poll question up. Does America, how significant is it to you, how old Booger was the last time that U.S. soccer didn't make the World Cup? Very significant, slightly significant, don't care that much.
But you're saying they're concerned about you and
Hember wasn't born the last time we didn't make it into the World Cup. All right? You want to feel young now? Here we go. All right, what else? What have I got here?
Off the top.
The postponement of Game 4 of the Nationals and Cubs because of rain in Chicago yesterday means they will play it today at Wrigley Field. And in what can only be described as a stunning decision for stunning reasoning, Steven Strasburg will not pitch in this Game 4 today, despite the fact that he would be doing so on his regular rotational rest. And you're going to hear Dusty Baker's explanation in just a minute. But, Booger, I mean, you're a football player. Yeah. You guys, this is the equivalent of the Super Bowl. I mean, it is an elimination game for them. It's at least a postseason NFL game. Can you imagine being a little under the weather and missing this game?
First of all, I can't. My defensive line coach told me, Rob Marinelli, I had a pulled hamstring. He said hamstring on a nose guard, unacceptable. You don't run far anyway. So here's a guy who has the sniffles. He's going to stand on the mound 60 foot 6 inches away and throw a baseball. You have the sniffles? The sniffles! You have a cold. Get a Kleenex. Go pitch. Are you serious, Steven Strasburg? And then you put your manager, Dusty Baker, in a very peculiar situation because Dusty's always going to protect his guys. And now he has to go out here and start lying about mold. And so now you got all the mold companies in the area concerned about the hotel. Like, this is a huge mess. And all Steven Strasburg had to do was man up. Man up. Okay, step up and show some grit for your teammate. And if all else fails, take some Dayquil. Like, let's take the Dayquil. Let's go pitch, man. Come on.
You're going to hear everybody on this. It's just impossible to believe. All right, Game 5, Yankees, Indians tonight of the ALDS, and Corey Kluber and CC Sabathia will be the pitching matchup. Those two pitched in Game 2, which wound up being one of the most dramatic baseball games you'll ever see. But Corey Kluber had almost nothing to do with it. He got shelled. So He's the best pitcher in the sport, at least in the American League this past year. He's going to win the Cy Young. He got taken apart in Game 2. What is your expectation for him tonight in Game 5?
I think we'll see the norm. I think Game 2 was an anomaly, and we all made a great big deal about Tito and everything that he did. I think Corey Kluber comes out tonight. He plays well. I'm more concerned about CC Sabathia because I know he's a horse. I know Cleveland struggles against left-handed pitching. But, man, CC in this situation, can he conjure up the magic one more time? I'm more concerned about him. I think Corey Kluber will be fine, and I expect the Indians and him. More than likely, I think if you were leaning one way, I'd lean toward Corey Kluber pitching a gem of a game and the Indians winning.
Off the top.
Special night in Las Vegas last night as the new NHL team in town, the Golden Knights, played their first home game. It isn't the first game in the history of their franchise. They've actually won all of their games. But last night was their first home game, and Steve Levy was there. They did a terrific job, I thought, with the coverage last night on ESPN. Some of the little features of it that you may have seen, there were no advertisements on the boards anywhere. It just said Vegas strong everywhere you looked, and they brought first responders and others out onto the ice as part of a ceremony. It was a really special night. And to the point you were making a little bit earlier, a good illustration of the ability of sports under the right circumstances to galvanize people and bring people together.
You know, Greeny, you see something like this, and it just breaks your heart what happens. But then you see the people come together. And then for me, my thoughts and prayers go out to all the families that were affected. But then I get a little pissed off, Greeny, and here's why. Because at a time like this, we all come together. Like, we don't see color, we don't see anything. We just come together for each other. But it always happens at times where there's tragic situations. How come we can't do it when things are normal? How come we can't do it just like, okay, things are great, let's come together and make our country a better place? That's what bothers me about a situation like this.
Yes, I think many people share your feelings, and the answer to your question is I have no idea. Why does this happen this way? Obviously, if I had the answer to that question, I'd be doing something much more important for a living than this. But I share your feeling that it is disheartening.
Off the top.
Anyway, the final off the top note this morning, Adrian Peterson has been traded. He never really felt like a fit in New Orleans anyway. Now he goes to Arizona, where at least until David Johnson comes back, he has a chance, we would think, maybe to get some touches and see what he can do. What do you expect from Adrian Peterson in Arizona?
Nothing, because I think when you look at Adrian Peterson so far, he's a shell of himself. And I think even if he was closer to the Adrian Peterson that we know, when he gets to Arizona, he's going to realize that the 5 guys blocking for him up front, those ain't Hall of Fame guys. And I think the struggles of the Arizona Cardinal offensive line are really going to be the issue there. And so they're going to bring in a new back. He's going to take the place of Chris Johnson. But in the end, I don't think it'll matter.
All right, that's Off the Top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. You could save hundreds on your car, business, or recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now, that's Progressive. Tons of guests all over the spectrum today, including Gruden and Herbie back-to-back in the second hour today, as we have every Wednesday. And we got Brad Stevens, the coach of the Celtics, will join us today, and Will Kane today, Field Yates, a whole lot more. Booger is here for Golic. Jam-packed sports day, of course, and we'll get some baseball in along the way as well, of course. Taylor Twellman went nuts last night, and you understand just how personal and significant this is to the people who have been building soccer in this country. You know, I mean, right now, football and basketball and baseball are so ingrained. They're so much a part of the fabric of our country that when things happen that are bad for the sport, I know, like the National Football League is in a tough place right now for a variety of reasons. And I know that a lot of former players like yourself, you take that to some degree personally. Yes. But you didn't build that league. That league was there before you. And it is there, it will be there long after you. A lot of the guys like Taylor and some of the others that we know, like they were a part of the building of American soccer. Like the last 20 years or so have been have been what American soccer has been. So I understand how personally they take it when something like this happens. So it was a very, very, very bad night, and Taylor Twellman had this reaction.
It's not just about tonight. And anyone at home, sitting at home, saying it's about the game against Trinidad and Tobago, 100% unequivocally, it is not about tonight. It is a complete embarrassment when you look at CONCACAF for the amount of resources and the amount of money that is put into our sport. Here's what I said. If you can't beat Panama at home and you can't beat Trinidad on the road, you don't deserve to go to the World Cup. It's not about tonight. It's not about Jurgen Klinsmann. It's not just about Bruce Arena. As a whole, U.S. soccer is not prepared. Every single one of those players,
they can take some
nightmares for the rest of their lives, because this is an utter embarrassment with the amount of money that is in Major League Soccer and in this sport. You can't get a draw, a tie against Trinidad? Max, you don't deserve to go to the World Cup.
And thus they don't. That was a very emotional Taylor Twellman. And again, I know Taylor and I respect him a lot, and I understand and appreciate his passion because, again, this is, if we have a bad year in the NFL, or even when we didn't win the gold medal in basketball at the Olympics, when everyone was extremely upset. I mean, in 1988, we didn't win the gold medal.
Right.
And the next thing you know, we've got the dream team. We're sending the NBA players because we decided it was not okay for us to lose. But it wasn't the death blow of basketball in this country. And I'm not suggesting this is the death blow of soccer. But, boy, this is a devastating blow to a sport that is trying desperately to grow.
It stops the momentum, Greeny, and here's what I mean. When I was doing local radio in Tampa, my partner then was telling me that there was a movement, a ground movement, to try to make soccer not the top sport, maybe not the second sport, but maybe the fourth sport in this country, behind football, baseball, basketball. Maybe it could take the place of hockey at being the fourth sport in the United States of America. There was a ground movement starting down low with small kids. Get the small kids involved with everything that's going on with football, with concussions. You start the movement early, and now by the time our generation gets older, then soccer has an opportunity to overtake hockey to become that fourth sport. So I think this is a blow to that movement, to all the momentum that was gained over the last few years since the World Cup to now, that the fact that they aren't going to be on the biggest national stage, I think slows that momentum down.
Yeah, listen, I mean, there are more kids in this country playing soccer maybe than anything. I don't know how they – is it the number one youth sport? It is. Hembo is nodding back at me, and I'm assuming he has some numbers to back that up. Or we're just getting Hembo's opinion, one way or the other. But I do believe it is the number one youth participation sport. Now, kids in this country have played soccer forever, and it is usually not translated into popularity with the sport on television. Look, it is what it is. There's no point in trying today to determine what this will mean to the sport 5 years down the road. There's no question. It is just indisputable. This is a terrible thing for the sport and for those who have an interest in seeing it grow. We are Mike and right now at Lowe's, Pro customers can save on the supplies you need most from the brands you trust. To help get the job done on time and on budget, visit Lowe'sForPros.com for details. Okay, back to the sports that we talk about more frequently here. Game 4 in Chicago rained out yesterday, so they will play it this afternoon at Wrigley Field. So we got both games for you today on ESPN Radio. Nats, Cubs, Game 4, Wrigley Field in the afternoon. Yankees, Indians, winner-take-all, Game 5 tonight in Cleveland. Can I get a weather report for both those cities, please, Hembo? In the meantime, Steven Strasburg, I think we all assumed, would get the ball instead of Tanner Roark in this Game 4 now because he would be on his regular rest. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Dusty Baker gets up there yesterday and says, actually, that's not what's going to happen.
He was slated. Didn't work out for Strauss with his bullpen day. And, we're all creatures of habit. And plus, you got full confidence in Tanner and Strauss. It'd have been better because he's feeling under the weather like a lot of my team is.
He's feeling a little under the weather like a lot of his team is. It gets worse. It gets worse because obviously you have to follow up on that. Well, what do you mean a lot of your team is feeling under the weather? And here's the explanation of that.
A lot of my team is kind of under the weather with the change of weather and the air conditioning in the hotel and the air conditioning here. And this is the time of the year, for mold around Chicago. I think it's mold because I have it too.
So we've got a $175 million pitcher who, if we are to take his manager at his word, and again, I like Dusty.
I love Dusty.
And I get you. He's just...
Dusty and I are frat brothers, by the way.
Are you?
Yes. But that still has nothing to do with the mold around Chicago. Hey, is Chicago a city that has just mold floating around?
I mean, listen, I lived in Chicago for 11 years. I met and married my wife there. I spend as much time there as I do almost anywhere. I've never been affected by mold. I don't find the air conditioning there to be any more or less destructive to my overall health than anywhere else.
Wow.
I'm taken aback. I don't know what to say. And I guess if there is some criticism of Dusty to be found, it is if you're going to get up there and say something, could you have come up with something better than that? Listen, it's that time of year. We got air conditioning. We got air conditioning. Booger, we've got an issue with the air conditioning, and that's the reason that my pitcher is not pitching today.
And the mold around Chicago.
And the mold. Now, we go through funny baseball injuries all the time, right? Like the time that Ricky Henderson fell asleep on an ice pack and missed a game with frostbite in August, which remains my favorite injury in the history of any sport. But this is something new. We're about to have one of the most decorated, highest, most talked about, first pick in the draft, $175 million contract pitcher miss an elimination game because of the air conditioning. Now, that is something I've never heard of before.
This is a bad look for Dusty, going back to when he took Scherzer out of the game, who had pitched 6 1/3, gives up 1 hit. Now you take him out, and that's a disaster. And so now you couple that with him getting to the podium and basically giving an excuse that, quite frankly, nobody across America believes. It's a bad couple of days for Dusty, and I think the only thing that's going to really salvage this for him is if they can go out and Tanner Roark can go out and get a win. But more importantly, think about this. Let's say Roark struggles.
Yeah.
You got any idea who's coming out of the pen first, probably?
Is it Strasburg?
Probably Strasburg. Are you kidding me?
Well, it may depend on the air conditioning. I mean, I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I covered a lot of games at Wrigley Field. I don't think they have air conditioning. That building was built like in 1912. Right. I don't think there's air conditioning in that building. I know that they redid the locker rooms and all that kind of stuff since last I was in one. I haven't covered a game there since the 90s. But I don't believe if there's air conditioning, it's relatively new and it's not that powerful.
No.
I've never heard of this before. Listen, this sounds, and this may be the most damning thing I can think of. Yeah. This sounds like something I would complain about, right? If you're going to miss a game because of something that would impact Greeny and no one else, like I could see myself coming in and saying, the air conditioning kind of got to me yesterday in the hotel. I don't feel so well. I have the sniffles. That's the kind of thing I would say.
All seriousness, though, Greeny, this is a bad look for Strasburg with his teammates because regardless of what happens this postseason, if you're a teammate of Steven Strasburg, you're going to look at him differently because as an athlete, I don't care what kind of sport it is. If we're a team and we're galvanized and we're bonded together and you leave me hanging at the most important time of the year because you don't feel well, because on your run, the sniffles were bothering you, understand this. Guys Kirk Schilling played with blood coming out of his body.
Yeah.
He's out there pitching, and Strasburg has the sniffles. Think about how he's being mocked, not only in his own clubhouse, but around the sport of baseball. A $175 million man can't pitch because his temperature is 98.7.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
If part of your football obsession is with your fantasy team, then we've got the man for you. Field Yates has made his way into our studios. We go around the world of sports with a variety of things on a busy day. Good morning, Yates.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
I got some Twitter reaction because you said that you were listening to the beginning of the show about this soccer thing.
Yes.
And I've got the poll question up. Let me read you a few tweets here quickly in the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. When we asked the question, do you care, and if so, how much, about the Americans not qualifying for the World Cup? James tweets, what country's jersey should I buy now? Chris tweets, I wouldn't have even noticed had the show not mentioned it. JD tweets, highly disappointed, but I think this will be a good thing for positive change in U.S. soccer. And finally, Matt tweets, why does everyone act like all of a sudden we care about soccer? Newsflash, 90% of us don't. And, Matt, that happens to be completely untrue, and one of the things that drives me the craziest is when someone takes their own opinion and says, no one cares about something just because I don't. You're wrong, Matt, but Clearly, this is a missed opportunity for soccer to go in this country. Field, you look like you were just playing youth soccer 10 minutes ago.
I was going to say, people tell me Christian Pulisic and I are doppelgangers. Maybe, I don't know, I'm his or he's mine. I'm not sure quite how you phrase that one. But, yeah, it does feel like, hey, listen, this is an opportunity that has completely gone away. You've got a shot at it once every 4 years. And, listen, I am not, I'm a casual soccer fan. I am certainly not of the hardcore variety. But it feels like the U.S.'s road to the World Cup is smoother and easier than other countries that are going, around the world, like just based off the region that we play in. And, the fact that you're going to go 8 years between World Cup appearances and the fact that you have a player in Pulisic who is right now regarded as maybe one of the best players or will eventually become the best player in our nation's history.
He's the future of American soccer.
But we just threw away one of his shots. Not that we were going to win the World Cup simply because of him. But, how many opportunities will he have to play in a World Cup in his lifetime? One of them has gone away. It's disappointing.
I'm just curious, who's older, you or Christian?
I think I have him by a couple months.
How old is he, by the way, Pulisic?
19.
He's 18?
19.
19. And you, Yates?
Real answer?
How old are you? I think people watch you all the time, and they say, how old is that guy?
He's got about 24.
I was going to say, I am a dozen years older than I actually look. I'm 30 years old.
Okay, fair enough. So that's Yates' age. So we got to the bottom of that, and then we get to the bottom of this mild mold thing. And I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, I got a lot of people tweeting at me, Greeny, this mold thing is real in Chicago. Listen, I'm sorry.
Come on.
I understand there's mold. I am a lifelong allergy sufferer. Okay. I have tried every allergy medication there is. I have figured out a concoction that works for me during my bad allergy times. I'm sorry. Sandy Koufax pitched in the World Series when his arm, he literally couldn't lift his arm up over his head. He had to retire because his arm was falling off. I cannot have a guy with a $175 million contract not pitching because of mold. Booger, that's not okay.
It looks bad, and it's going to reflect on the rest of his career because no matter what he does, no matter how many no-hitters he throws, as a teammate of his, I'm always going to look at him a little sideways, knowing that when the going gets tough and it's crunch time, can I count on you? Like one of the things as a teammate that I can say about you is dependability and accountability. If I can depend on you and I can count on you when times get tough, then to me, that goes a little bit further than how much talent you have. And right now, I think a lot of people are looking at Steven Strasburg and wondering, can we count on you? Are you dependable in the future? Are you the reason maybe that the Washington Nationals haven't fulfilled their potential over the last couple of years? I think a lot of people are wondering that this morning.
What do you make of it, Yates?
Well, he's a prodigal prospect, right? He has been since his days pitching college, right? Like number one overall pick in the draft. He was supposed to be the player that sort of rejuvenated this franchise after its move from Montreal to Washington. And I feel like there are a couple factors that work maybe against him right here. Beyond the obvious fact that it feels ridiculous that you're missing out on, as you sort of drew the analogy between a Super Bowl game or at least an NFL postseason game and an MLB elimination game for his franchise. Like, doesn't it feel like Max Scherzer, his teammate, is scratching and clawing to take the ball tonight?
He was mad he got taken out.
Right. Exactly. He had, 98 pitches after 7 innings, and he gets pulled by Dusty Baker. Listen, I understand that athletes are subjected to criticism that some feel is unfair and sometimes they feel is too much. This feels like one where the outside pulse matches the inside pulse, right? The players on his team probably say to themselves, really, dude, like the sniffles? Not like it's been 20 degrees in Chicago. I watched that game a couple of nights ago. Half the stands are in short-sleeve shirts at Wrigley Field. Like, I get whatever, the mold, like, is everybody else playing for the team tonight?
The problem with the short-sleeve shirts, don't you understand, Field, is that now all of a sudden there's air conditioning. All right, we're not accustomed to having the air conditioning going in mid-October, so it was unseasonably warm. So
it was.
Got the air conditioning, and that creates
Here's how you know
mold.
Here's how you know that Steven Strasburg is soft. When you're making fun of him,
to
me, he's soft.
I'm the softest person in the world.
When you're making fun of him, that lets you know how soft he is.
It's ridiculous. DL/AC. I mean, air conditioning. Mike and Mike, Yates is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let me get to something serious. Mike and I got into this yesterday. Field, I want to give you the floor first because once you give it to Booger, we're never going to get it back. I have heard multiple people here suggest that it was a mistake for Odell Beckham Jr. to be on the field at all on Sunday, knowing his circumstance. And his circumstance was he was playing for $1.8 million, and he is waiting for $50 million or something in that in guaranteed dollars. And some are wondering, some people like Shefty and Max Kellerman basically took that side, that he shouldn't have been playing.
Yes.
My feeling is somewhere more in the middle, which is I wonder if this will be the beginning of a change in that mentality, because the football player's mentality is you play. I mean, much like Booger is saying here about Steven Strasburg. No, you play. That's it. You play. No matter what the circumstances are, you play. I wonder if, for whatever reason, Odell never winds up getting his money. Let's say, I hate to even say this out loud because I don't want it to happen so badly. But what if he doesn't recover fully? What if he loses just the tiniest little bit of the explosiveness and the brilliance of his dynamic athleticism that have made him the player that he is? Will this be the beginning of a new era in football relative to that?
I don't think so, for a couple of reasons. First of all, like we have seen that players have sat and still not been paid, right? I mean, Dwayne Brown, the left tackle for the Houston Texans right now, has yet to report to his team. We are now in the 6th week of the NFL season. He wants more money. He was already well compensated relative to a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. He wants more guaranteed money, and the Texans are not inclined whatsoever to budge. Aaron Donald sat out training camp, returned the day before the regular season, actually missed the regular season opener because the team, wasn't sure if he was in playing shape, so to speak. He has not gotten his contract yet. He will eventually get that, I do believe. But I just believe that so many teams will tell players face-to-face that the best way for us to pay you is for you to play. There's also a competitive edge that I understand as a business, and I understand that these players can potentially make not just millions, but tens of millions. And the elite can make hundreds of millions of dollars by maximizing their on-field potential. But we were just talking about this a minute ago with the baseball. Like, Booger, I think you mentioned Rod Marinelli, your defensive line coach at Tampa Bay, now the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, who said, listen, hamstring for a nose tackle, you guys don't run real far. Unacceptable. But I think probably part of you was going out there no matter what because you're a competitive guy. Right. Like, it's hard to pull these athletes from the most natural environment and spectrum that they live and breathe every single day. So do I understand the concept of guys sitting out for the opportunity to get paid? Yes, at the same time, until we see a notable example of a guy sitting out for an extended stretch and then getting a record-setting deal, probably a few of those guys, I just don't see it happen.
All right, let me pause there because I have a feeling that Booger will have strong thoughts on this because when Mike and I were talking about it, Booger was texting me. We will dive into this in a moment. Should Odell Beckham have never been on that field in the first place? Is Aaron Donald risking $50 million by being out there?
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Tons of reaction in the Twitter feed to a variety of things today, including the U.S. missing the World Cup and Steven Strasburg missing an elimination game because of mold and air conditioning and other things. But I'm desperate to hear Booger's reaction on this topic. So let's jump to it quickly, and then we'll go back to a few other things. The suggestion by, among others, Adam Schefter and Max Kellerman on ESPN the other day that Odell Beckham shouldn't have been on the field in the first place, playing for $1.8 million when he knows there's a $50 million guaranteed payday out there for him so long as he stays healthy. And now, of course, he isn't healthy, and every time you set foot on a football field, you run a fairly significant risk of not being healthy. Booger, you played a long time. What's your reaction?
Well, when you hear people say that, it's spoken like somebody that is either never played the game or they aren't involved with the game now. Because, Greeny, it's ingrained in us from a young age, you go play. The CBA, the Players Union, how we go about our daily business ingrains in us we play ball. So you're asking a player to do something that goes against everything that's ingrained inside him. And, Greeny, I'm going to make a bad comparison, so forgive me before I even make it. But imagine, you're a tremendous broadcaster. You're going on to bigger and better things.
Why do you say imagine I'm a tremendous broadcaster?
No, I said you are.
Okay. Well, you did use the word imagine there.
Probably
it was incidental.
Well, yeah, okay. You call it incidental. Well,
go ahead.
You don't have to imagine. You are.
Right.
You wouldn't save yourself realizing that there are bigger and better things coming. You're going to go about doing...
No, I understand that, but I'm not putting myself in jeopardy. I'm not putting my vocal cords in jeopardy or anything else by doing this job. Football is an inherently dangerous
It's a dangerous
job.
sport, but it's the thing that we're ingrained to do, Greeny.
I understand that, but my point is that sometimes to your detriment, to your own detriment as a football player.
I will definitely give you that, but the very thing that got us to this point, you're asking us to stop doing. That's why Odell is not going to do that. That's why Aaron Donald showed up, because in order to get the money that we want, we have to continue doing what we've been doing to get to this point. That's
because
what's
the system has
us.
been put in place specifically to force you to do that. Once again, another example of how the NFL players have it about as bad a deal as you could ever possibly have. But let's go back to this. We are asking football players right now,
correct,
when they get their bell rung, when they get dinged, something that you would have not given a second thought to when you were playing.
Correct.
How many fingers am I holding up? Well, less than 20? Okay, good enough. Go back out in the field.
Right.
We're asking players to change that mentality, right? So that someday, hopefully, we can make some dent into what is a really serious problem the sport has with head injuries. Well, that's a change in the mentality. And it's either going to happen or it isn't. But if it doesn't happen, it is to the detriment of the players themselves. So why wouldn't this be something they could potentially change? Because it is working to the detriment of the players themselves.
Because it's not in the player's control. See, the head injury thing that you mentioned, that's in the player's control. The contract and the money, it's not in my control, because I'm asking the team and the ownership to pay me some of their money. That's not in my control, because all the team will say is, you know what? We're not negotiating until you show up. We're not going to pay you until you show up. And guess who has the most money? The team.
They do.
Exactly. So that's why it's not in the player's control. So the player is always going to lose there. You wonder why players can't hold out. You wonder why players don't have the gall and the stones to say, you know what? This CBA is wrong. We're going to hold out until it's better. You know why, Greeny? Because the owners have more money than the players, and they know it.
Right. And that is about most of the players.
Yes.
But Odell Beckham is not most of the players. Field, what would happen if Odell Beckham really tried to get into a stare down with Giants ownership? Because I'm thinking of situations, very few, but there have been some, where players held out and won. I can think of Darrelle Revis doing that. I've seen other training camp holdouts that resulted in contract extensions, usually not for guys this young. What would have happened if Odell Beckham had just said, I'm not showing up until you give me my money?
Well, I think going into this season, I think he would have eventually gotten paid. Or I should say this. I take that back. Excuse me. I think he would have had a hard time getting paid, and here's why. Going into this season, and it's funny that we have this Aaron Donald and Odell Beckham Jr. sort of confluence here. Going into the season, many people, myself included, forecasted the Giants not just be a good team, but a playoff team, a team that was capable of threatening to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. 11-5 last year, made some reinforcements this offseason, outstanding receiving group, terrific defense, etc. So when Odell Beckham Jr. isn't showing up, even though he didn't show up for stuff that was voluntary, let's be clear about that. There were people that were saying, listen, man, this team needs you. And not only that, but like, you're going to be real, like, if you show up, like, you're going to get paid, like, eventually going to get paid. This team is too good. It's too impactful. Like, they have proven, they have the infrastructure in place that this is a steady organization. Meanwhile, many people were taking the side of Aaron Donald for not showing up to the Los Angeles Rams because he was the best player on an otherwise not very good team. Well, here we are 5 weeks into the season. The Rams are 3-2. The Giants are 0-5. If the Giants had gone to 0-2, 0-3, and Odell Beckham Jr. was not there, you can bet the rallying cry from every person that thought that Odell Beckham Jr. should have held out would have just amplified. It would have become a chorus of millions saying, you guys don't know the issue right now? The reason why you're 0-3?
Pay the man.
You don't have the best player on your team.
One of the most famous holdouts ever, Emmitt Smith. Cowboys started 0-2.
Yep, right.
Emmitt got paid. Emmitt came in. Cowboys going to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
You have to find a team. It has to be the right situation for it to work. The fact that the Rams probably not going to make the Super Bowl, yes, they've improved. They're a little bit better than we think. And the fact that the Giants are terrible this year probably doesn't go a long way if those two players would have held out.
Well, I think what it comes down to is this. Before the season, when a team has a chance to be a Super Bowl contender, publicly we focus on, like, we sort of extol the virtues of, teamwork and camaraderie and make it a push for the ultimate prize. Hey, your legacy will be defined by Lombardi trophies and playoff moments and overcoming last year's playoff disaster. For the Rams, we weren't talking about that because the Rams are nowhere near the radar of the playoffs going into the season. It was, can this team win 3 games this year? Like, is Jared Goff a colossal bust? We were undercutting everything the Rams had done. And I'm not saying that they're going to, maybe the Giants and Rams finish with a comparable record this year. Who knows? But it was easier for us to say, Aaron Donald, go get yours, man. You play for a bad organization right now. Now, things have changed quickly. Odell Beckham Jr., though, I think had a leg to stand on. Now we'll see how much.
I got 10 seconds, Yates. Should anyone be interested in picking up Adrian Peterson on the fantasy team now that he's in Arizona?
If you're desperate.
But only if you're desperate. You don't expect big things.
Nope. Proof is in the pudding here. The tape.
Okay, well done. Field Yates every week with us. Thanks a million.
Thank you, guys.
Bill.
Gruden and Herbie both coming in the next hour, plus all your reaction to the U.S. World Cup and all your reaction to the mold in the air conditioning in Chicago. We're back in just a moment. Mike and Mike.
Sniffles.